National Crisis Group, a very respected mainstream organization, put out a report about 3 weeks ago in which it says there is no middle ground. If there is an invasion of Rafah, there's going to be mass hunger, mass starvation in at least northern Gaza and perhaps elsewhere. And they were emphatic about the fact that you have to make a choice, either suspend the invasion or accept that you're going to cost the lives of thousands and perhaps more than thousands of civilians in Gaza. The second point I would make is that, at least as of the last few days, the Undersecretary for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, has said that no aid is coming through to Gaza anymore, that Rafah has been shut down, that Karam Shalom has been shut down, and that Gaza is now in a position where it was a few weeks ago when Israel was effectively not admitting any humanitarian aid to Gaza. So at a humanitarian level, should there be a full scale, there is an invasion right now in large numbers.
This is 1.5, yeah. He's a painfully slow speaker.
Of people, I guess the current estimate is 300,000. Large numbers of people have been displaced. Displaced where is unclear because it's unclear where to go. But if there's a full-scale invasion touching the core of the Rafah refugee population, then one can, at least according to the International Crisis Group, expect mega deaths.
Ishai Fleischer, I watched Dr. Phil's...
This was 2 weeks ago. This is more current. He's not doing his normal talking points. It was about this particular invasion, so we might not hit any of these. We'll see. Did we get the mega deaths? Did the mega starvation deaths happen? Did the mega civilian deaths happen? Did we get to the mega deaths part?
Interview with Prime Minister Netanyahu last night, and he was emphatic, Netanyahu, that there would be no stopping Israel going into Rafah and that they had to do this because Hamas had to be eliminated. But it would seem from American intelligence that Hamas is already regrouping in the north of Gaza, which surely should be of significant concern to Israel, shouldn't it? If the strategy is simply not working and Hamas is regrouping now in areas that were thought to have been places where Hamas had been removed, doesn't that suggest this?
That's a big issue. That's really bad. This guy probably is excited for that, though. The scary thing about that is that that would probably be your strongest justification for redoing the occupation and maybe even reestablishing settlements in Gaza. Is, yeah, look, like, yeah, Hamas is already reappearing in places that we've cleared. The only solution is we need to actually have a full-time presence now. We need to go back to having a full-time presence in the Gaza Strip.
This military strategy is not working.
First thing, Piers, I want to thank you so much for having me on the show, and I also want to use this opportunity to wish Israel a happy 76th Independence Day. Tonight we celebrate that. Israel is the most exciting project of the Jewish people in 2,000 years, so this is a big deal for us. Today was Memorial Day, now it's Independence Day, and so, I really appreciate the chance to speak about these things with you today on your important show. With regarding to Gaza and the Hamas war, okay, so we're going to have to fight them in Rafah, and if we have to fight them in the north, we'll do that as well. We're in a war. We're in a war. We're not here to just give it up right now just because it's not working here or there. We're at a war with people who have dug tunnels 15 stories deep, people who want to destroy the state of Israel. That is their charter. It's a religious charter. They say that they want to get rid of all of Israel, starting with Gaza. And if we have to pivot to the north, we'll do that. The Jewish people are used to conflict. We've been through a lot of conflicts throughout our history, 3,000 years of conflicts.
Is there Israeli guy, the same one we watched the YouTube review of Destiny from earlier today? Yeah. I think this is going to be the guy giving me the Jewish tour of, I think, hopefully of Hebron. We'll see.
But we're still here. So if we have to go north, we'll go north. It doesn't. What follows from your question is not that we should just give up and not attack in the south. It just means that we'll have to move on our attack north, and we're going to deal with this thing because we have no other option. I want to remind you, Piers, that it's a proxy war as well. If we lose this thing, we're going to lose it to the Iranians, who just declared that they have a nuclear bomb. We have to fight this. We have to prosecute this war to the end and send a signal to the Middle East that we're not joking around.
Okay, let me play you Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, what he had to say on the weekend shows in America.
We're seeing parts of Gaza that Israel has cleared of Hamas, where Hamas is coming back, including in the north, including in Khan Yunis. As we look at Rafah, they may go in and have some initial success, but potentially at an incredibly high cost to civilians, but one that is not durable, one that's not sustainable. And they will be left holding the bag on an enduring insurgency because a lot of armed Hamas will be left, no matter what they do in Rafah. Or if they leave and get out of Gaza, as we believe they need to do, then you're going to have a vacuum, and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos, by anarchy, and ultimately by Hamas again.
No, Ishai Fleischer, the problem is America.
Wait, who's... Hold on. Okay, this is Blinken. Close one. I've always seen his statements. I haven't seen him speak before, okay? We almost got Graber there. Obviously, there would be a power vacuum. The goal would be to bring back in the Palestinian Authority or to something, obviously, right? Obviously. Like, there's an obvious statement. I don't know what the point of this statement is.
You're going to have a vacuum, and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos, by anarchy, and ultimately by Hamas again.
No, Ishai Fleischer, the problem is America is, as I said, America is Israel's biggest ally by far. Also, biggest supplier of military hardware, which President Biden's already said he's going to stop a lot of that going to Israel if they go into Rafah. But to have the Secretary of State of the United States expressing such concern about the military strategy, surely that has to concern you, doesn't it? Because ultimately, if you kill all these innocent civilians in the process of getting rid of Hamas, but you end up not getting rid of Hamas, that is a failed war, isn't it?
Okay, so first thing with regarding to civilians, we have to remember that civilian deaths is actually part of Hamas's strategy against us. They want Israel to kill a lot of civilians so that Piers Morgan can ask, hey, what's going on with the civilians, so that the Anthony Blinkens can give Israel a hard time. So that is in their interest. They're actually going against the Geneva Convention's stated laws that you're not supposed to put in civilians in front of.
Yeah, but Israel is also
incoming
killing.
army,
Israel is also
knowing
killing thousands of civilians. You accept that?
Yes, we are, because we're in a war.
Right.
We're in a war. And we basically, it's like this, Piers. If we don't do it, then basically we are sending the war onto the next generation. We're just passing the buck. We're kicking the can down the road. It means that my children are going to have to prosecute the next war. We've already seen that. We've already had many wars with Gaza. This is like war number, like 5. So if we don't take care of this business, they're going to come stronger at us. They're going to declare victory.
I don't know what the rhetorical maneuvering around that point is. It always just looks bad when you've got dead civilians. This is why Hamas loves dead civilians. It's just a hard point to argue on. You always sound unhinged when you give this take. I feel like my line of questioning is good for this, that I haven't heard somebody else try. I don't know how you counter this, but like, if dead civilians is such a big deal, where are the Hamas humanitarian safe zones? Why hasn't Hamas built any bomb shelters? Why does Hamas invest so much infrastructure for tunnels for their military, but none for their civilians? Why isn't Hamas working with Israel to set up a humanitarian corridor? Why is that I'd be curious how somebody would squirm around those questions, because like, yeah, like the dead civilians thing, you just have to like scream it over and over again. Dead civilians, dead civilians, dead civilians, dead civilians, like, and you're just like fucked.
Victory. We can't have that. We can't have Iran be victorious in Gaza as it has been in Yemen, as it has been in Iraq, as it has been in South Lebanon. We can't have that. So this time, October 7th is an opportunity to clean house and to make sure this doesn't come back again. Now, people on the more right-wing part of the spectrum believe that Israel should actually hold on to Gaza and have minimally a military presence there, if not more. Because if we just back out of there, what happens is the next Hamas or the next evolution of Hamas will take over. So yeah, Piers, bottom line is it's a war, and we got to fight it.
Right, Norman Finkelstein, Ishai Fleischer said this.
I wonder if I can briefly respond to that.
Yes, you can, yeah.
Briefly? 2409. I wonder how brief this response will be.
Thank you so much. I think there's a bit of a misnomer here by designating what Israel's aim is to simply impose a major military defeat on Hamas. I have no doubt that that's correct. However, I do believe that what you're describing, quoting Anthony Blinken, as the aim is to simply impose a major military defeat on Hamas. I have no doubt that that's correct. However, I do believe that what you're describing, quoting Anthony Blinken, as a failed strategy is only half correct, because Israel has another goal. The goal is to finally solve the Gaza question for once and for all. As the other person said, there have been many high-tech Israeli massacres in Gaza. It's actually quite a large number, more than 5, but I won't bother with the figure. And the goal right now is not just to...
He was referring to how many conflicts there have been. There's even more than I am aware of. There's like, there's 2008, there's 20... There was a big one in 2012 that I hadn't even read about. There's 2014, there's 2018-19, there's now 2023, 2021 I think was a big one. It seems like every couple years there's like a big thing. Yeah. Eliminator, thanks for the 5 subscriptions.
Mow the lawn in Gaza, but to extirpate, pull out from the roots every blade of grass in Gaza. That is to say, to make Gaza unlivable. And in terms of that goal, which is separate and discrete from the goal of inflicting a military defeat on Hamas, that goal is coming close to achievement. They have made the north of Gaza and they have made central Gaza unlivable. Those landscapes can now be described as
I'm too lazy and I've got too many projects going on right now. I can't do it. I really wish somebody would keep track of the predictions that people make, because I feel like people are allowed to squirm away from bad predictions too often. How many predictions have been made about starving Gazans? How many are going to start starving to death? How many were made for there? How many was made for this invasion in Rafah that you can't? How many said you can't evacuate that many millions of people? How many said that you can't do these strikes without there being like, thousands of civilians dead? How many said that, you can't, that Israel is hurting all these people down here and won't let them leave? How many have said that they're going to force them into the Sinai? They're not going to let them back in the north. There's so many bad predictions. You shouldn't be able to make this many predictions and be wrong and still have any amount of credibility. You should at some point, you should be hurt from that. But,
howling wilderness. The only area of Gaza which is not physically unlivable, that is the only area that has not been completely reduced to rubble, the only area is Rafah. And so when Prime Minister Netanyahu says he wants to finish the job in Rafah, that, in my opinion, yes, it does include a component of trying to defeat Hamas. But the bigger goal, in my opinion, judging from what the Israelis have said, their bigger goal is to make Gaza an unlivable place. And so the people of Gaza, in the words of Israel's former head of the National Security Council, Giora Eiland, the only choice that will be left of the people of Gaza will be either to stay and starve or to leave.
Lindsey Graham, the American senator, gave an interview also at the weekend. I want to play a clip from that, Norman, and come back to you for your response to this, because he raises
2409, that was a 2.5-minute response. Nice.
Interesting point.
Well, why is it
big
okay?
deal.
Well, can I say this? Why is it okay for America to drop 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end their existential threat war? Why was it okay for us to do that? I thought it was okay. To Israel,
Jesus fucking Christ, what a stupid fucking comparison. It's a billion different, like, Jesus. Okay.
do whatever you have to do to survive as a Jewish state.
Senator, again, military officials say the
Whatever you have to
technology
do.
has changed. But let me ask you about how
Yeah,
all
these
of this
military
could
officials
impact-
that you're talking about
let me ask you
are
something.
full of crap.
I mean, strong words there. Now, I think it's been misinterpreted as him saying that he wants Israel to use nuclear weapons. He didn't say that. What he was saying was, if it was deemed morally acceptable, as many felt it was, albeit horrendous death toll, but to end the war morally defensible for America to deploy nuclear weapons in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, then why is it not morally defensible for Israel to do whatever it needs to do to eliminate the threat of Hamas, given that Hamas is on record after October the 7th, saying they wish to do the same thing again and again and again, and have a charter which, when it was first written, said their obligation was to get rid of all the Jews?
I think there are a couple of aspects to that question.
Has Hamas at all, to this point, attempted to negotiate a ceasefire directly with Israel, or has it only been with third parties, i.e. Qatar, Egypt? Is it normal to negotiate with third-party countries acting as a mediator? Sometimes, especially with Israel and the Middle East, some countries don't want to recognize the existence of each other or the existence of certain groups. I don't know why Israel and Hamas don't negotiate with each other directly. I don't know if that's because Hamas doesn't want to communicate with Israel, or if Netanyahu doesn't want to recognize and communicate with Hamas. I don't know what the actual answers are. I'm not sure. In the past, there have been countries, like a lot of the Arab states don't recognize Israel. So there's been, it was called shuttle diplomacy with Kissinger. You've got like the State Department people from the U.S. flying back and forth to negotiate. And then at other times, Israel, I think prior to the Oslo Accords, didn't want to negotiate directly with the PLO or recognize the PLO. So, I mean, it's both sides do it. I don't know who's the fault, who doesn't want to talk to each other directly between Hamas and Israel right now. I'm not sure.
The first aspect is I don't think there is a broad consensus outside the United States, leaving the U.S. apart. I don't think there is a broad consensus that it was morally acceptable to drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In particular, you could say that the Hiroshima question is debatable, but I don't believe anybody seriously argues that Nagasaki was morally
Can we
defensible
not get
or
too much into
militarily
World War II?
necessary.
Let's talk about our situation now.
Yes,
We got
that's
some
fine.
serious things to deal with right now.
That's fine.
Let's get to it.
Right, I'm trying to be.
Let's not get into academic mumbo jumbo.
Destiny, a while back, you were very confident, stating that the white flag shooting was staged/done as a manipulative ploy. Old Palestinian dude, why don't you apply the same level of scrutiny/skepticism towards the recording IDF released today? I don't what level of scrutiny or criticism? I don't even know how are these two situations even remotely comparable?
I understand, but let's get to it. The bottom line is that Israel is a tiny country, and if you look at the map, you'll see we're a tiny.
Oh my God, he brought props.
Jewish state within. That's right, but we got to get to it and not talk about Nagasaki or Hiroshima. What's the difference? Because we're a tiny Jewish state within the Arab Muslim world. And if we don't defend ourselves, then we're an ethnic minority. We're an armed ethnic minority.
Let Norman Finkelstein
Piers.
respond.
Piers, you have to decide whether you're the moderator or he's the moderator.
No, I'm the moderator.
You asked me a question direct. Okay, well then I'm trying to be responsive to your question.
Yeah, I understand.
So now on the question of Israel and Gaza, either you do or you don't accept the laws of war, what's called international humanitarian law.
Okay, we got the international law one here. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, we hit one of them. I didn't mark off the genocide ICJ ICC one because I'm waiting for him to acknowledge one of those two. We got 1 of 4 right now.
If you do accept the laws of war, then Israel has to abide by those laws of war, and the fundamental law of war is called the principle of distinction. You have to distinguish between targeting civilians and targeting combatants. So I don't believe Lindsey Graham is correct, except if in his opinion, he said Israel has to do what it has to do. That's his essential.
I'm sorry. I am going to go hard because I just don't like Norman. I think he's a fucking retard. If you're being critical of Israel and you're being good faith, there are 3 huge principles of conducting warfare. The principle of distinction is not really what you're looking for, which is differentiating between combatants and non-combatants. What you're really talking about is the principle of proportionality. I think that's what you're actually talking about. There are 3 big ones. It's distinction, it's proportionality. I have this in my notes. Fuck. What is the third one? I know it. I just don't know what the big 3. It's distinction, it's proportionality, and it's somebody say it. Somebody give me the third one. What was the third one? Oh, you guys not paying attention during our... Wait. It would have been under debate prep. It would have been under Finkelstein. It would have been debate outline. Oh, and precaution. I think these are like the 3 huge ones that get brought up a lot. Distinction, meaning that you obviously can't target people that aren't combatants. Proportionality, meaning that if collateral damage is going to happen, there has to be a big benefit to your overall war effort. And then precaution, meaning that like you can't just surprise attack and like, oh shit, like a bunch of civilians didn't know and now a bunch of people are getting killed or whatever. Constant care must be taken to spare the civilian population. Civilians and civilian objects, all feasible precautions must be taken to avoid, and any event minimize incidental loss of civilian life, injury to civilians, and damage. These are your three big ones, I believe, when you're talking about your conduct for war. The reason why distinction doesn't make sense here is distinction only is a valid criticism of Israel if you truly think they're just shooting anybody, like combatants or militants. But that's kind of an unhinged opinion. A more precise criticism would be you're ignoring proportionality, meaning you can't just blow up 2 militants to kill, you can't blow up or 50 people to kill 2 militants, right? That would be like a better criticism. But he actually could just have the unhinged opinion, and he'd just be stupid. It is Finkelstein, so.
Israel has to abide by those laws of war, and the fundamental law of war is called the principle of distinction. You have to distinguish between targeting civilians and targeting combatants. So I don't believe Lindsey Graham is correct, except if in his opinion, he said Israel has to do what it has to do. That's his.
But Hamas doesn't? No, Hamas doesn't do any of these things. But nobody cares, I guess. The enemy needs to differentiate themselves too, though. No, doesn't distinction change when you're up against ununiformed guerrilla force? No, you still have all these same obligations. They don't change just because the enemy population conducts warfare in a different way. You still have all these obligations. But the enemies are engaged in warfare that's illegal as well. They're failing to help their civilian population as well, which is also a positive obligation you have.
Central argument, but that means, as I understand him, Israel doesn't have any obligation to obey the laws of war.
Well, okay, let me just say on that, Norman. On that, just to clarify, he wasn't advocating that Israel should break international law. He didn't say that.
Destiny, in one instance, you are sticking out a strong position of people being willing to risk getting shot in order to further a Palestinian narrative. In the other, you seemingly don't entertain the possibility of the recording being faked. Not saying it is fake, just curious whether there appears to be a great difference in the level of skepticism. Are you asking me why I don't think that the IDF faked an entire recording? I mean, it's possible, but that would be an exceptional thing to do. That they faked literally an entire recording. That they faked the footage. They faked. It's possible that they could do that, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a history for it. Has the IDF ever faked footage like that? If I had a history of them doing that, I might be a little bit more willing to accept. Like, okay, like this might have happened. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a precedent for that, and the risk to that would be insane. That if they got caught doing something like that, like their credibility would be so unimaginably destroyed. A lot of people think the PIJ phone call from the Al Ali hospital explosion was fake. Yeah, but they just say that because it was the IDF that released it. They just say it's fake. They think it's fake because they say it's fake. But there's like no evidence that it's fake. You could argue there's no evidence that it's real, except the IDF. I think the United States said it was real too. Didn't the U.S. intel back Israel on the on gathering the evidence for that phone call? But I would assume that in other circumstances you would be skeptical of 2 days later a recording is being released, perfectly outlining every point that would incriminate the recorded persons. What do you mean? When am I skeptical of you got to give me like a more accurate thing to map or compare this onto. Who's like, I don't even know what I would compare this to. A military releasing footage showing like where they bombed in a particular site, where people have already caught the bombing on camera. Like, I don't even know what you would compare this to.
And I would throw it back at you, I guess, at this point, which is, do you now, or maybe you have always done, but do you accept that Hamas broke international law, given it was a governing body of Gaza at the time, that when it committed the act of atrocity with its terror attack on October 7th, that was a breach of international law? You accept that?
I would say there are two aspects to that question.
Oh, boy. He's not going to do the under international law, you have a right to defend yourself, because that's what the way that he's using that is not true. You don't have the right to just launch a war against your neighbors, especially to kill civilians, but...
National law, there is no law on preventing people living under an occupation from resisting that occupation.
This is just a lie. This is just wrong. You need a justifiable cause for war. You can't just make shit up and say, but this is Norm. He likes international law when it suits him, and he likes it when it doesn't. Personally, I think the biggest part of my debate with Finkelstein, and nobody even cares about it, like this, I feel like anytime anybody ever talks about this guy, this like one clip should be cited, and then it's like, oh, this is a very unserious person. Why the fuck is this debate hard to find? What the fuck? Oh.
Back in
Wow. Oh, cool. Thank you. Would it be this part?
This should be discussed
No,
under the
now
law.
you're doing what Moeen said. You're becoming very selective about the law. If you want to forget about the law, Hamas had
People
every
should
right
be
to
across
do
the
what it
board.
did.
Wow,
It had
thank you.
every right to do what it did, according to you, not to me, because you want to forget the law.
Do you still support the Houthis shooting random ships?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a violation of international.
That's it. That's it. It's like the destruction of, like, you don't take this person seriously anymore on this topic.
Forget the law.
Do you still support the Houthis shooting random ships?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a violation of international law. So you play the same game.
Absolutely. And were there a power during World War II who had the courage
Yeah.
using armed force? Under international law,
For God's sake,
it is
he's
neutral.
on record
However,
stating that he was jovial at
however-
that.
Ishai, I will let you respond. Just let him finish the point. I'll come to you.
All right, let's get to it. All right.
However, in the course of its armed resistance to the illegal Israeli occupation of Gaza, it broke the laws of war to the extent that it targeted civilians, and the evidence thus far indicates that massive atrocities occurred on October 7th. However, we have to distinguish that, which was clearly a breach of international law, from the right of a people under occupation to use armed force to end the occupation.
Okay, let me go to Ishai Fleischer. I mean, on that point, do you agree with Norman Finkelstein's assessment of what happened there?
First thing, October 7th was a horrific massacre. There's no international law that's going to back that. But we know, and you had this on your show, we know that Norman Finkelstein celebrated the murder of Jews. He's on record. You tested him. You saw that he was not telling you the whole truth. You know, he said, I, for one, will never begrudge. It warms every fiber of my soul. The scenes of Gaza's smiling children as the arrogant Jewish supremacist oppressors have finally been humbled. So forget international law. He's happy that Jews were murdered. You know, that there was some soldiers that they were murdered, their male members were cut off and put in their mouth, and then the terrorists took out the phones and sent pictures of that to their mothers. All right, what are we talking about here? Let's get back to common sense. We have a war here. Again,
Let's say instead of a recording of Hamas being released, a recording of Netanyahu and Smotrich was released containing, did you see how we blew those suckers up? Yeah, they really had it coming. I'm so glad we will be getting away with this. Haha, yes, the world is so gullible. So glad we got so many civilians. Are you asking me if I would believe that? Like, generally when leaked footage gets, like, publicized, generally I think that the footage is probably real. People faking whole footage like that. Like, if you want examples of me believing this, I can give you two really good ones. One, that whole statement that Netanyahu made, what was it? About like funding Hamas, or Hamas is good for like keeping the Palestinians divided. That's not a direct quote. That comes from a leaked conversation in a Likud party meeting, right? I'm pretty sure that quote is true. I don't think I've even questioned, like, did this actually happen? I was curious what the context surrounding it was, and I found it, but that was a leaked quote. Also, when we watched the videos of the Israeli snipers near the wall, the separation border, I'm pretty sure one of the snipers talks about like, oh shit, like nice shot or whatever, when they shot that boy. And I'm pretty sure I don't think I questioned the authenticity of that footage. I was like, oh yeah, shit, like soldiers probably say some fucked up shit, even if they make nice shots, even if it's fucking kids or whatever. Like, I don't think I questioned, like, is this real footage? Did this actually happen? I don't think I even asked that question. So yeah, no, like, it's pretty rare. I don't know if there's ever been a case where there's been like completely faked leaked footage that didn't even happen. There's been like kind of like staged footage. Weren't you skeptical of the intercepted phone call of Hamas during the whole hospital bombing? Not really. I just said I wasn't going to really factor it in because, one, I don't know if people fake calls. Two, I don't know if anybody could authenticate the call. And three, I know that you fucking retards that are poising us. I say you guys, but I mean, most of you probably are lions of Zion at this point. But like most people aren't going to factor that in as evidence. They just don't care. Like, for instance, the interrogations of some of those Hamas or PIG captured people that Israel has released the interrogations of, there's probably some value in that, but I don't even bother to use it because people already think that the IDF fakes and lies about everything. So I'm not even going to bother to source any of that because I know people are going to say, oh, they were tortured. None of that actually happened. They all lied about it. This is all staged. I don't even waste my fucking time, but there's probably some value in there. But that's why I didn't source any of the leaked phone call for the Al Ali hospital thing.
against an intractable enemy that wants to destroy Israel. Even President Biden, who's not a big fan of this war, has already said that Israel has not done atrocities, is not committing a genocide. That's already passé. Even Norman Finkelstein's beloved ICJ basically did not go into saying that Israel is doing atrocities. They kind of bunted and said, please be careful in the future. That's it. So now we're fighting an intractable enemy. As I said before, it's
just as a real quick thing, you cannot source the ICJ and use them to exonerate Israel of war crimes because they're not being tasked with investigating those war crimes. That's a bad example. But
proxy war as well. And it's not an occupation. Very sadly, my nation, Israel, in 2005 gave away land. I was there. I was there with Arabs. I was there with Arabs and Jews in Gaza in 2005 when my army came, the Israeli army came and took us out of there. The Arabs there begged us. I still remember their hands through the fences like this. They said, don't leave. You don't understand who's going to take over. Now, what Norman Finkelstein is going to tell you is that all day long Israel's committing atrocities. If you go to Telegram, you could see the videos of Hamas shooting civilians and women yelling, you have destroyed our lives, you have destroyed our land, you have killed our children. Hamas is a cynical organization. Its leaders are billionaires.
Where's that video
Its
at?
whole thing is to make Israel look bad. It has no care for its own civilians. It steals the food that comes there. There's been thousands of tons of food that has come there, okay? But they steal it. They keep it for themselves. So what are we talking about? Let's just get back to common sense. We have a terrorist organization. It's controlling a piece of land. We're fighting them, trying to minimize civilian casualties. But yeah, it is war. It is war, and we're fighting it. Yes, they're putting their children in front of our munitions on purpose. And that is a very sad situation, but we cannot stop prosecuting this war. For us, it's existential. We are a tiny ethnic minority in this region.
You're tiny in geographical size. You are enormously powerful, actually, in terms of military power and in terms of political power.
And you see what happens.
And you have as your number one ally the United States of America, which is the most powerful superpower in the world. In January this year, your former boss, Ben-Gvir, argued that the departure of Palestinians and re-establishment of Israeli settlements is a correct, just, moral, and humane solution to this war. I mean, that cannot be right. Surely, I mean, the solution to long-term peace is not going to come down, surely, to Israel filling Gaza with Israelis. I mean, that would surely cross a line which nobody would think could be remotely achievable in terms of a sustained peace.
This is a big question, Pierce, and a good one, an important one, which is really a much bigger question about how do we move forward. First thing is, we have a war with a jihad. We don't have a war with Arabs. We don't have a war with Palestinians. We have a war with jihadists. Jihadists, they control the landscape because they're very violent. Mostly they're violent against their own people. I know this firsthand from Hebron. I cannot tell you how many examples I have of Arabs that want to make peace and relations with Hebron. I have excellent relations with many Arabs in Hebron, and yet they are persecuted by the Palestinian Authority, in Gaza by Hamas. Why? Because they want to move forward in normalization with Israel. Israel wants to normalize in this region. At the end, we are not very different than the Arabs. We have a similar DNA, we have a similar language, we have a similar religion. We're the children of Abraham. And some people are recognizing that that's the way forward. That's the Abraham Accords. Okay, that's the UAE and Morocco, maybe even Saudi Arabia in the future, in the near future, I hope. We have a way forward. And the way forward is a way of peace. What is peace? A strong Israel on its land, on its ancestral homeland, surrounded by Arab states on their lands. And those states together working together to make the Abrahamic region successful and thriving. But there are elements that are jihadist elements. These elements want to undermine that. They want to destroy normalization. They're against Israel. They're also against moderate Arabs. They're against Christian Arabs, Arameans. When I speak to non-Jewish residents and citizens of Israel, like Druze, like Cherkessi, like Arameans, like Bedouins, like pro-Israel Muslims, they all say the same thing to me. You have to be strong against the jihad. You got to crush it, or else it's going to take over. It first and foremost crushes the average Arab, the average decent person who wants to normalize with Israel. So the answer is like this: fight with the jihad. Be bad to the jihad so that you can be good to the good people. That's the way forward.
Okay.
It's not to be wishy-washy, to back up.
Let me go to Norman Finkelstein. Your response to that proposal?
I'm not sure what the proposal is. What I hear is a lot of statements that seem to be completely detached from.
I get you, however, it's the nature of the recording that I find weird. Secret recording in a room where one does not expect to be recorded is different than a phone call. Remember the 10 crack commandments? It's very convenient that two people call each other and hits every incriminating point. Imagine a call between drug dealers and they mention location, amount of drugs / money, time of deal, descriptions of clothing, etc. I mean, maybe, but I don't know if we're dealing with very sophisticated actors here, and the rules are a bit different in terms of how people are evaluating it. So, like, here's something that I find unbelievable. Wait, fuck. This doesn't just search for titles? Hello? Wait, I can do this. I can do this. I think it's unbelievable how much high quality footage exists of like Palestinian violence on the Palestinian side. So like, for instance, you just said, isn't it crazy that there's like the perfect recording that exists that incriminates them on every level? That is a little bit crazy, but like they've literally taken footage themselves and published it of them doing that, right? This footage Like, this footage is taken by a Palestinian militant. This footage is taken literally by them, crossing the border, going to the other side, planting improvised explosive devices. This is their own footage. So, I mean, like, this is more incriminating than any fucking leaked phone call or the footage of the, and there's more even for October 7th, but like this shit. Like, oh, don't you think it's convenient that you literally have an actual fucking Hamas soldier walking down a row of porta potties, shooting into each one? Like, sure, wow, they're like so evil. Of course, they would just shoot into every. Like, would they even waste the ammo on this? Like, and this is their own footage. So when you ask me, again, I'm going by like historical record. Like, well, what have people tended to do, right? This is why when somebody brings up like, oh, did you hear that Hamas murdered a civilian because they thought that they were protesting too much or some shit? Like, yeah, I can believe that. They've done that before. They've killed collaborators or whatever. But when somebody else said yesterday when they were shaking around that headless baby, when somebody was like, do you think that they cut the head?
Okay. Can you hear me? Let me know if and when you can hear me. Yeah, let me know when you can hear me, and then I can sort of talk through my thinking on the R5, on the color profiles and stuff. Okay, cool. So on the R5. Can't be bothered getting it out. So I will set a. I'll probably, when I get to the photo shoot, I'll first set it to auto white balance. Frame up like a kitchen or something roughly. Set it to auto white balance, and then on the R5, I'll go into color profiles, just in the quick menu, where you choose like landscape or this stuff. But you can do it like whilst you're in live view. So R5 live view color profiles. Try and see if I can see an example. Well, anyways, in live view, in the quick menu live view, I'll go in and you've got all of your base level color profiles like landscape, vivid, color, standard, auto, neutral. So, and then you can make 3 custom ones. And so whilst I've got the kitchen framed up or the first photo framed up, I'll set the white balance to auto, and then I'll go into the color profiles, go to a custom color profile. I'll probably, you can then set what the base is, like what it's going to set the default settings to, and I might set it to neutral. Then I'll go in and tweak each thing individually. So I'll reduce the contrast a little bit on the color profile just to get a bigger dynamic range. I'll probably up the saturation just a little bit. And then in the color tone, you can either add more red purple or add more green. So sort of the equivalent of in your color calibration, this here, but you can do that in the color profile. So I will knock it like 1 or 2 steps towards green. Yeah, just to help with that color toning. Then once I've got that dialed in, I will go into my white balance and I'll go to the manual Kelvin. So where you can set like 5,000 Kelvin, 6,000, 7,000. And then I will just, whilst I've got it framed up, at this point I might be streaming to my iPad so I can sort of get a bigger rendition. And then I will sort of finesse it from there. It's probably going to end up somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 just so that it's warm. So this one here, I'm set at 7,450, but at this point in the day it was pretty overcast. So it looks as though I was sort of trying to compensate for that. So it's probably going to look a little bit more yellow in some areas of the photo than probably what I would necessarily want it to be. Okay, so at that point I will have dialed in the color profile. I will then have dialed in the warmth of the white balance, so the Kelvin. And then on the R5, you can start sort of finessing the calibration inside the white balance. So it's sort of the equivalent of the calibration stuff here. Here, let me get rid of this. It's sort of the equivalent of this. It sort of like allows you to tweak how much green there is. It's more so just the saturation, so not the hue of the colors, but you can add more like blue, green, and that sort of thing. And I'll typically be adding a little bit more green. Yeah, does that make sense? I have no idea if that makes any sense at all. But I found that getting your white balance kind of close to where you want the final product, it has a heap of really big knock-on effects. Because the amount of warmth in a photo has a pretty outspoken effect on the dynamic range. I think it just sort of comes down to how it might add or reduce contrast, and when you sort of are doing something that adds contrast, that will make your blacks blacker and your whites more white, and like you might lose some detail. So it's fascinating, yeah, how broad those effects can be from color, that it will then have effect on overall contrast, if that makes sense. I wish I could sort of step you through it on the menu on my Canon, but I don't know how. Oh, I mean, it's totally doable because I could just plug it in and then you sort of use the computer as a monitor, but that sounds like a lot of work. And if anyone's wondering right now, I'm not really doing full post-production on this project whatsoever. I'm putting together the proof for this photo shoot for every shot taken that I'll send across to Sean Lockyer, the architect. And because of the way that this particular client, his brain works, he can get very clinical with composition and the sort of the balance and like the overall sort of geometry of it. So I might not normally do this keystoning and perspective correction on probably 80% of my proofs, like before I start the editing, but I know that it'll help this client a lot with what he does and doesn't pick because of the overall sort of feel and stuff he likes to his photos. Yeah. Anyways, as I chug through this, I will probably put video back on. So if you have any more questions, add them in the chat. and I'll see what I can do to help. Boom, boom.
Off that baby to put him on camera, and for that claim I was highly skeptical because I've never ever heard of that before. I've never heard of Hamas killing their own people like that, beheading babies. So I didn't believe that immediately because there's no history of that type of behavior. Or same thing when people said for the mass graves, people were like, oh, some of these bodies came up with their hands tied behind their backs. Do you think that Hamas, maybe they tied their hands and then took pictures? I've never heard of that behavior happening before. So I'm immediately way more skeptical of that than some other behavior. Just these are like the heuristics I'm using. None of these are 100%. It's just like, what do people tend to do, or what have they historically been caught doing, and blah, 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 yeah.
Or what the proposal is. What I hear is a lot of statements that seem to be completely detached from reality, at least as I understand it. Let's start with one of his earlier statements. He said in 2005, when Israel was redeploying its troops from inside Gaza to the periphery of Gaza, the people of Gaza were begging the settlers to stay. There were approximately 8,000 settlers in Gaza at that point, and they controlled about 30% of the land. The 2 million Palestinians in Gaza were given about 70% of the land at that particular moment. Number two,
Norman, I just want you to know
at
I'm
that
talking about from
time, the
experience,
head
not
of
from
Israel's
theory.
national...
I was there.
Is that true? I have no idea. No, not this. Settlement area in the Gaza Strip of March 1999. Built up area. Actual Israeli developed area. Civilian yellow area. Oslo defined Israeli settlement area. That would be that is a crazy distinction if that few Israelis are given that much land in the Gaza Strip. I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, I'm sure it could have happened. I was curious if there's like an actual number on that somewhere. What is Finkelstein sourcing or citing for that?
They talked to me.
Sir,
I was there.
You really have to act as peers. Many of these Israelis...
He's so ass mad. I can't believe this fucking loser cries to the moderator so much. Fuck, I should have done this against Lex with him and pointed out that he did that. Well, this is after that, to be fair.
Israelis think the whole world is the West Bank and Gaza, where they get to control everything. So you really have to remind him that this is a civil conversation.
I want Israel to stay and be strong. Don't change the topic. It's very simple. I just said to you, I was there. I saw them with my own eyes. They talked to me.
Yeah,
they said, don't give up this land. And the same thing that Al Bedouin said, don't give up this land.
Okay, let Norman finish. Because he listened to you.
Okay.
Norman did let you speak and then responded afterwards. Afford him the same courtesy.
You got it.
So at the point where, according to the other speaker, the people of Gaza were begging the Israelis to stay, according to the head of the National Security Council at the time, Giora Eiland, and this is March 2004, he described Gaza.
He's about to do that one quote, one of the 3 quotes that he uses. He's going to do the open-air prison. Do you think Finkelstein's actually just really stupid? Like, I wonder if his problem is he's like a stupid version of me, where I like to have like discrete facts and discrete events, because that's how and then internally I'll have like a narrative that works, but I like to think discretely. Finkelstein seems to work very discreetly as well, where he doesn't seem to have a good understanding or broad contextualization of the facts that he talks about, but he's very artistically cherry-picking like 1 or 2 quotes, but he's never able to contextualize it. And that was the whole debate with Benny Morris twice, right? And other people, where he has like 1 quote and then he just wants to work off of that 1 quote, where he can't actually, but he's not contextualizing anything. I know he's about to use the open-air prison quote. Hold on, where's my current conversation? So I can check this one off.
Gaza as, quote, a huge concentration camp.
I'm sorry, the huge concentration camp quote, yeah. That quote that he's pulling from, by the way, it's not even like an analysis of, it's not even an analysis of the conditions in Gaza. It's like a 1-sentence throwaway thing, although the UN does the same shit here.
So I find it a little bit far-fetched to believe
one Israeli?
that the
Please don't interrupt.
Have you read anybody else? Like one guy, that's the guy?
Let him finish.
Over and over again.
Please let him finish.
The question here isn't even, do you read one Israeli? The question is, oh, What was the underlying analysis to that guy saying the concentration camp thing? Why did he say it was a concentration camp? Norm won't answer that question. Coleman Hughes already posed it to him, and Mark Lamont tried to ask Norm that question on a YouTube video, and Norm literally chirps for 20 minutes to avoid actually answering the question.
Sorry. Sure.
So I find it a little bit far-fetched that the inmates of a concentration camp would be begging for the guards to stay in the camp. That to me is an unusual. It's an unusual scenario. Now, this talk about the people, Israelis reestablishing illegal settlements in the illegally occupied Gaza Strip, that to me, there is a problem there. I was reading an interview yesterday with an expert on the subject. Israel has deposited, as of now, there are about 37 million tons of destruction, about 37 million tons in Gaza right now.
What even is that measurement? 37 million tons of destruction. He also uses these really weird quotes and comparisons where it's like, what? How am I supposed to feel about that?
I've made an early call. I am going to keep this 2.8 litre 76 series. And now it's official because I've said it. Obviously a big deal to me. Why? Because if I'm keeping this, it means I've got to let something else go. More on that a bit later. Because I'm keeping this vehicle, I want to protect the paintwork. I'm going to head to a place right now to get some PPF. There's a test panel waiting for me. If this stuff can withstand the testing and the abuse I'm going to give it, I don't think they know what they're in for today. Oh. If it can withstand that, I will wrap the car, providing it passes the test. There's a dent there. That's how committed I am to keeping this vehicle. I've scratched so many other vehicles in the past. Every vehicle I've owned has been scratched. I have had rhino hide on my vehicles. However, for this vehicle, that is not available. I want to protect the whole car. The roof, the bonnet, everything on this car. Here we are. Holy moly, what a bunch of rigs. I definitely don't really fit in with the caliber of cars here. These cars are sick. Now, imagine yourself driving down a track, right? And it's scratchy, you're pinstriping the crap out of your car. That's scratching my paint.
That sounds horrible.
You get to the other side, you're airing up and you notice all the pinstripes. I mean, we all go through it, it's just part of full driving. But imagine you're on the same track again.
Are you kidding me?
You get to the other side, by the time you got home, all the scratches are gone. Am I living in a fantasy world? Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'm about to find out if this fantasy could be a reality.
Hey mate.
How you going, man? So I'm touching a polished car, right?
How are you?
How are you, Nick?
Hey guys, I'm Nick here from Matting. We've been around for the last 10 years, 10-year anniversary last year. We work on all sorts of cars here, exotics, four-wheel drives, motorbikes, boats. We specialise in paint protection film, window tinting, paint correction, detailing, ceramic coatings.
Nick has prepared a colour match panel for me to test and abuse with both types of wrap. So that's stealth, and this is wrapped as well,
Gloss.
Is this paint?
No, this is gloss film, mate. Unfortunately, it's not a Toyota, it's a Ranger.
Same colour code.
Exactly the
All right,
same.
so we get to see exactly what it's going to be like. So with this panel, guys, we're going to do a scratch test.
Yeah, take it through the bush, throw stones at it, whatever you want to do.
Before we can test this panel, Nick has a ballsy idea first.
I guess you have to believe in your product, and what better way to show you than on a brand new M3. So shall we give it a go?
You serious?
Yeah, let's do it. Why not? Then you can...
We got a test panel. You want to scratch your car?
Well, yeah, it's there. That's what it's for, right?
You don't have to do it. Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's not very nice, is it?
Nick gets the heat gun out to speed up the process of the healing. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's good, eh?
Just gone.
Perfect paint.
Oh, we're going to have to go next level on that now.
I think so.
After seeing how the gloss healed, I was intrigued to see how the stealth wrap would compare on my testing panel. I'm pushing pretty hard there. See, this doesn't feel as bad as when I was scratching your car. Wow, it's hard to see in the stealth one, eh? You can barely see I've scratched it. I can't actually see it on the stealth. All right, that's enough messing around with the brush. Let's go level 2. Don't want any greenies to come past now, do we? Cannot see it on the Stealth. Level 2 hasn't really done much, so let's go level 3. Let's bring it up a notch. I'd imagine that would have done something. You can definitely see the scratches now. As I'm rubbing my hand over it, they're kind of disappearing. Let's inflict more damage before we look under the paint protection film. Level 4, keying the panel. A couple of different pressures. Do one of those nasty zigzaggy ones. We actually got through the vinyl there. Knife. Sorry, Nick.
That's all right, mate.
Yeah, the side of the knife. We'll get the boys to remove the Stealth wrap and then we'll see what the paint looks like underneath. But this will also allow us to put it up against the bush again with exposed paint, Stealth and gloss. So we're at the scratch part now. That's seriously impressive, but with the exposed section of paint, let's see what happens without the film and go next level on the wrap to find its limits. I want to break it. Coming into the car park, turn it like a 70. Now that you can see, right? I've got an idea.
Imagine dragging it on that ground.
Let's take the dog for a walk.
We're about to find out how good it is.
Hold your horses, Nick. Not done yet, mate. I think that's enough, eh?
How do you feel about that?
Oh, it hurts to watch that, you know, but mate, that's a good test. I like to walk in the dog, mate.
Now to compare the results. Post-mortem analyse.
Oh,
It was a surprise one for you?
yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. Huh, see that? There's a dent there, very slight dent there, but there's no...
Oh, yeah, so there is. Yeah, there you go.
But I can't see in the Stealth. Paint's completely gone here. I mean, this is fucked. This is just peel it off, put another layer on, right?
Yep.
The PPF itself got torn, so how bad is the paint underneath it? It's not bad considering what we just did.
Yeah.
Then we got the gloss still.
Yeah.
So it's come through the paint there and it's gone down to the metal when we dragged it on the gravel. But when you consider what it's been through, incredible, it's fascinating.
You could fill that with a bit of paint, rub it back, polish it, and it would be gone.
And then put another layer on top.
Yeah.
If you got that out in the bush, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. Let's say this happens to you. You bring your car in, instead of taking the car to the panel shop, it might be a 4-week, 6-week wait. Then you got to get it painted and then risking the mismatch of the panels. We take it off, replace it.
Which means the colour won't change then.
Correct.
After seeing his work withstanding my abuse, Nick couldn't help himself and joined in on the fun. Out of all the nonsense we've done today with this panel, that is probably the most relevant to most people. That is what this will do to protect your paint.
Unbelievable.
That's insane.
I guess the question is, gloss or Stealth, mate?
Mate, no brainer. Stealth.
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 Sick. It'll look amazing. I haven't seen a Stealth 70 yet. Stealth, it's going to exaggerate all the edges, so it's going to look a lot more boxy and tough.
Time to hand over the keys and head back north. Meanwhile, the boys at Mad Ink will have the vehicle for 6 days. There must be a lot of work that goes into this. And 6 days is also a very long time to be waiting and anticipating what the vehicle is going to end up looking like.
Before we start wrapping it, it's going to need to be washed and decontaminated. Reason for that is we want no contamination, red dirt and dust, pretty much anywhere that's going to hold any sort of dust. And then we'll wash the paint and then we'll inspect it.
My name is Matthijs and I will be wrapping this 70 series. I'm really looking forward to work on this car. We've never done a Sandy Taupe 70 series from gloss to stealth, so I'm really excited to see what it's going to look like. Before we're going to start wrapping anything, Nick is going to take the car apart.
Bit of a process before we can put any film down on the car. This car in particular is probably one of the hardest ones because there is so many bits and pieces that have to come off before we can actually wrap it.
I'm Kyle. I'm an installer here at Mad Ink. I'm going to be assisting the team in stripping it to enable the film to go around the edges.
Flares will come off. Mirrors are off. These were a little bit of a pain, but you can see Right here, there's obviously sand from when Ronnie's been out. You can see why we take out the window strip is potential contamination. This is the sort of stuff that we'll clean up.
Before we're gonna start wrapping anything, we're gonna do another few rounds of decontamination. One of them is clay barring. I prefer clay barring in here rather than in the wash bay, just because we have much more light. I'm just using the soap as a lube, so the clay bar is actually gonna slide right over the top of the paint rather than grip onto it. I've already dug up the templates for the 76 series. We're using XPEL's plotting program, allow us to wrap the car with a minimal amount of cutting on the car. This way you can see all the different cutouts for the left side of the car. I have to start putting some film down. Let's see if we can put the left side down today. Oh, how good stealth gonna look on this thing, eh? At least I started with the hardest panel. I'm wrapping around the edges for two reasons. Reason number one is you've got way more protection. Then reason number two is when you wrap around an edge, there will be no visible lines, so the material will almost be invisible on top of the paint. They weren't lying when they said it was a hard car.
It's 6 days later. I handed a car in last Tuesday. Today's Monday, the week after. I haven't seen the car at all. I was feeling all right until I pulled the camera out. You've only seen bits of it. You haven't seen the whole car, you're saying? No. You know, it's a big change in the car. Have I made the right choice? We shall soon find out. You know, I got cold feet on a green wrap not long ago. You were surprised about that?
Yeah, I thought it would have looked good.
Oh, cheeky bastards. I put a sheet over it. Hey man, how you going?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, good mate.
You excited?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey.
How are
Yeah, good, good. Sorry, came through the back.
you? No, you're right, mate. What do you reckon, mate? You pumped?
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped. I don't think keep me hanging too much. Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty anxious to see it, eh? It'd be cool.
After we had wrapped Trav's 300 series from PDP in XPEL Stealth, Ronnie had seen it and reached out, and it was something he was interested in doing for his car. He wasn't sure if he wanted gloss or stealth, but I'm glad that he went stealth. Really hope he's pleased with the end result.
That's sick, eh? Actually looks like a brand new car.
Yes. Yeah, it's awesome, eh?
I was pretty confident it looked good, but I didn't think it would look this good. That is sick.
Yeah.
That came up really good. And I can scratch it and not worry about it. How cool is that?
Pretty much. Really happy with how the entire job's turned out. The team's worked amazing. Everyone's come together to end up with an amazing result. You only need to look at it and see how good it looks.
Amazing job, guys. That's sick, eh? It's like your work's kind of hidden, but it's not hidden. Does that make sense?
That's the idea. I look how angry the bonnet looks now. You know, it's really, the shapes really pop.
Very, very happy with that, guys. That's so cool.
There's a lot of parts on this car to come off, eh? There was 4 of us. Would have been all of 4 hours to strip. That roof rack's awesome, but
yeah,
super easy.
come off
to
easy.
Yeah. Normally they're the pain.
Good job, man. Wicked job.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
The boys, everyone did a killer job, the whole team.
Awesome
Really
job.
enjoyed working on it.
Yeah.
It came up so good.
Amazing job and experience. I'm so happy I went with Stealth. Let's check out this new look in the morning sunrise. There you go, folks. In the light of sunrise. How good does it look? It's completely changed the look of the vehicle, but that's not the main point. The main point is to not scratch this vehicle. Now there is a decision I need to make, which I alluded to at the start of the video, and that is one of the V8s is going to have to go. It's a tug of war between sentimental value, being the 79 series. I've had it for like nearly 11 years. It's been a big part of the channel. It's a big deal. The Troopy, the practical use of that Troopy to travel around Australia. That's a hard decision I've got to make. I don't know which way it's going to go yet. What I do know is how this vehicle performed with 35-inch tyres towing a caravan up the same hill that this vehicle towed up last time and failed this time with a 2.8 on 35-inch tyres. It is what it is. It's I'm gonna go test this wrap out and try not to think about which car I gotta sell. See you next time.
For years,